Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse. It's been too long, and I'm excited to have you all here again today to join us for a pretty wonderful story. At our church lately, we've been talking about something called spiritual gifts. What are spiritual gifts? Well, spiritual gifts are the things that we do to help others to build them up. What we mean by that is things we do to help others feel good, things we do to help each other live a good life and be safe and feel loved inside, or to help each other get things done. And so spiritual gifts really could be almost anything that you can do. If you do it to help someone else, that is the Spirit of God working through and with you to make the world a better place. How cool is that? And here at the Lighthouse, we have one of our favorite books, actually talks a lot about the idea of spiritual gifts. It doesn't use that word, but the story it tells actually helps me and helps Pinchy and I understand a lot about spiritual gifts. The book is this one. It's called Extra Yarn, and it's by Mac Barnett, and it's illustrated by John Klassen. And I'm going to read it to you today, and then we're going to look at a Bible story real quick to wrap up. So here we go. I'm so excited to share this with you guys. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And it starts like this. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from the chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So there's the town, and everything is only black or white. There's no color in the town. And there is Annabelle. She's got a little dog. She found a box full of yarn of every color. So she went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, her dog, too. But after that, there was still extra yarn. So she made herself a sweater, but then she started sharing the yarn. First with Mars. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate, he must be a boy from town, pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. So there's Annabelle walking with Mars. And there's Nate and his dog. He's not being very nice. Let's see what Annabelle chooses to do. But it turned out he was. So he was a little bit jealous. Once he got a sweater and his dog, suddenly he feels nicer and more loved. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself, and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. Look at that tiny little box of yarn that she has. But no matter how much she uses, it never runs out. I wonder how far this could go. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. He must be the teacher. He's kind of in a grubby mood. Most teachers are really nice, right? He's not feeling too well. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." There's Mr. Norman, feeling real grumpy today. And there's the other kids. Yep, they're all turned around looking at Annabelle. She's there with her little box with the yarn in it. But it turned out Annabelle could make a sweater for everyone. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. Says the other kids from class. Ooh, each of their sweaters is just a little bit of a different color. And when she was done, she still had extra yarn. Mr. Norman seems a lot less grumpy now that he got a good gift, huh? So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. There's little Louis. Look how many people are getting a sweater made of color. She's working so hard, making cool things for others. She made sweaters for everyone except for Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants. And he would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. There he is. He wears his shorts like he's going swimming, but even in the winter. So she made him a little hat to keep his head warm. And after that, she still had extra yarn. No matter how many things she makes, she's not running out. It's incredible. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that don't even wear sweaters. So, oh my gosh. All the dogs and the cats, and look, there's even a bear and a rabbit in there, and then a mailbox, and then a birdhouse and a people house. Oh my goodness. Everything is turning so colorful from what Annabelle is doing. Things in the town began to change. Everything was only black and white. Before they didn't have any color. But Annabelle got some yarn, and she's sharing it, and it never runs out, and it's all these beautiful colors. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from all around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. So there's people who've come from all over to visit her. They're saying hi to Mars too, it looks like. Even kids. But here's the Archduke on his ship from a land far away across the sea. Does he look very proud? "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2,000,000, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10,000,000, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So she doesn't want money for the yarn. I wonder if that's because she's enjoying using it to help others make their world more beautiful and to feel warm and loved. Maybe that's more important to her than even $10,000,000. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box. And they took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed across the sea. So there's 3 ladders to an open window at Annabelle's house. And they broke in and they took the box and they got on the ship and they sailed far away. I don't think Annabelle's going to be able to catch him. That's the sad part of the story. They took the box back to his castle. Is his castle colorful and warm and beautiful like their town? The Archduke put his favorite song on, and he sat in his best chair. He's got a very fancy chair. Wait till you see it. Then he took out the box, and he lifted the lid, and he looked inside. What do you think he's going to see? What's going to happen? Empty! The box is empty. The yarn had never run out before when Annabelle was using it. Why is it empty for him? His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." So there he is. He's cursing her. But does he seem happy up in his tower, Stealing boxes from little girls. He threw it out the tower, and it splooshed into the ocean, but landed on a piece of ice. The piece of ice broke, and that piece of ice is sailing out into the ocean. And look where it sailed to. Her box sailed right back to her in Mars. The Archduke couldn't steal it. It didn't work. Not only did the magic not work for him, but the box found its way back to Annabelle. And he had cursed her to never be happy again, but it turned out she was. She was able to knit a giant sweater for this giant tree that she's climbing up in it with Mars. So the box worked again. So what's the secret? Oh, there's one more picture. Here's all the animals with all their little sweaters hanging on the tree. What's the secret? Is the magic in the box? Maybe. Or maybe the magic is with Annabelle. Because the box didn't work for the Archduke. But the box does work for Annabelle. Whenever she shared her gift, her spiritual gift, she used it to help others feel loved and warm and to make their town a more beautiful, wonderful place to live. Whenever she used her spiritual gift, it never ran out. There's always more and there's always enough. But when the Archduke tried to use it for himself, it didn't work. So maybe the box is magical, but there's also something very magical about Annabelle. She loved others and wanted to serve and to help. And so that's how the magic works. Sometimes it seems like we don't have much, but maybe if we all share and love each other like Annabelle does, maybe something magic can happen where there's always enough. There's a story from the Bible that's a lot like this. There's a story where Jesus is traveling, and wherever he travels, people love to hear what Jesus has to say. They seem to really love Jesus because he's really kind and loving himself. We at our church actually believe that Jesus is God walking around, and it turns out God is really good, and God is really kind, and God is really loving, and he shares. So people just love to be around Jesus, but also then Jesus will stop and he'll teach people things, and he'll teach them all about how good God is, and he'll teach people ways to live that are really good for making the world a more beautiful, wonderful place and helping other people feel loved. So everywhere he goes, people love to listen. And so one day, there's a whole crowd of people. There's thousands of people, and they're there to learn from Jesus and to be near him. They've been with him all day. And imagine they're sitting out on a big field of grass, and they've been listening all day, and it's about lunchtime. They're starting to get really hungry. Maybe it's really hot that day too. And so Jesus' friends, he has like this little group of students that are really close to him. They come to him and they say, Jesus, it's about lunchtime and we don't have food to feed thousands of people. Let's take a break. You should send them home so they can get something to eat, and then maybe there will be time for them to come back. And Jesus has this idea. He wants the people to stay close to him. So he says, well, why don't we just feed them? And I have to imagine the disciples kind of like, I don't know if they're like shocked, like what? Or if they kind of laugh because Jesus' idea seems kind of crazy. How can we feed thousands and thousands of people? And Jesus says, well, look around and find some food. And they all kind of look around and they find one little kid, and he has a little box, kind of like Annabelle's box. They open it up, and there's just like a couple pieces of fish and a couple pieces of bread. Enough for like one kid to have a lunch for one day. So his mom and dad were pretty smart. They had him pack a lunch before he traveled to go hear Jesus teach. And they're like, well, this is the only food that we have around, Jesus. It's just a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish. Your idea is not going to work. We can't share this little bit of food for thousands of people. Jesus says, just watch. And he takes the food in the little box, and he starts breaking the food, and he puts it into baskets. They have some empty baskets, and he starts breaking the food and taking it, and breaking the food and taking it. No matter how much he takes out of the box, it never runs out. it's like Annabelle's magic box. Jesus is able to just keep bringing more and more fish, more and more fish, more and more bread, more and more bread. I like fish, so this actually sounds really good, and it's about lunchtime for me. So he keeps breaking the fish and breaking the bread and breaking the fish and breaking the bread, and he keeps doing it. And this must go on for a long time. I don't know if you've ever seen a crowd of thousands of people. There's a lot of people. So Jesus probably sits there and just keeps bringing food out of this little tiny box for like, what, an hour? Maybe more. And just people keep walking up and they fill up a basket and then they walk out to give it out to people. And so soon enough, he's broken up so much food. He's taken so much fish and bread out of this little basket that all the thousands of people get to sit and eat until they are full. I don't know about you, but when I eat a really good meal and I feel full, I just kind of sit back and I just feel warm and loved and I feel so good. And I love it when other people share their things with me. So I bet these people really love that Jesus gave them a free meal, which is really nice. And so here's the secret of that story. As long as they were willing to share, there was enough for everybody. The boy was willing to share. Jesus was willing to share. And God was able to do something magical in that moment. It was a miracle. There wasn't enough fish and bread to go around, but God did something very special. And he took a little bit of something and made it so that way there was enough. A lot like in Annabelle's story, there was just a little box with a little bit of yarn in it, but as long as she kept sharing it and using it as a spiritual gift to help others, there was always enough. And so, what I think the Bible story and our extra yarn story are teaching us is that we have good things we can do, things about ourselves, or maybe talents we have, or skills that we have, or maybe even stuff that we have, like bread or fish or yarn or something else. And as long as we keep sharing those and using them to help other people, maybe God will do something magical. So that way, there's always enough. Maybe it's not really that much of a miracle or something crazy kind of magic. Maybe that's just the way God made the world. That if we would all share what we have to help each other out, there will always be enough. Maybe the entire world is magical when we use our spiritual gifts. This week, what can you do to help someone else? Maybe you can give them your time. You can spend time with someone and help them feel loved, or help them with a job they have to do or a project. Maybe there's something you have that someone else could really use. Maybe something you can share or even give away. Or maybe you can share your words. Maybe there's someone you know that maybe hasn't heard from you in a while, that you really love. Maybe you can stop this week and take just a little bit of time to call them or write to them, or send them a message somehow to let them know that you see them and that you love them, even if you can't be together. That would be a great spiritual gift. Thanks for joining us here in the Lighthouse, everyone. Take care. We'll see you again soon.